Okay, it's nice to be back where I started. We're coming on 8 years, maybe even 9 years. I think we were doing 2 years of classes audio, and then this is original pizza right here in the house of Berta and David. Thank you so much for inviting me over. I'd like to wish Rafa Shlema for my mother, Imi Morati Va'ater Roshi, Ruth Bat Avraham, Ilna Rafanala. And may she be healed in all amongst all the cholim of Klal Yisrael. Okay, so the parasha we're going to read this Shabbat is called Parashat Tesaveh. And what's unique about Tesaveh that everybody notices, of course, mentioning, is that Tesaveh is missing something very important. It's missing Moshe Rabbeinu's name. It's the only parasha from Shmot all the way to V'zot HaBracha. Obviously, Moshe's name does not appear in Sefer Breshit, but from Parashat Shmot, all 4 books of the Torah, Moshe's name featured many times, except this parasha does not have Moshe's name at all. And our rabbis say, why is Moshe Rabbeinu's name is not mentioned here at all? Because in next week's parasha, Parashat Ki Tisa, we're going to read about Chet HaEgel. And one of the ways that Moshe Rabbeinu negotiated with God to avoid the Jewish people being destroyed was erase my name from your book. So when a tzaddik says something like that, even though Hashem did not, thank Baruch Hashem, destroy the Jewish people, nevertheless, because he said that, this is how our Mefarshim learned that his name does not appear in the entire parasha of Tesaveh. We also know, not this year so much because it's a leap year, but generally Parashat Tesaveh is coming usually a couple of weeks or a week or so before Purim. And what do we notice about Purim? There's also something about Purim that's unique compared to Tesaveh. There's a very prominent name missing in all the Megillah, and that, of course, is the name of Hashem. The name of Hashem does not appear in the Megillah. In fact, everywhere in the Megillah it says Hamelech. That's really Hashem's. It's really Hashem, with 1 or 2 exceptions. When it says Hamelech Achashverosh, not then. But whenever it says Hamelech, that's really referring to Hashem. But his name is not mentioned. So we understand that a name is very, very important. A person is called by their name. When a girl is born, the first Shabbat, or the first time her father goes to Bet Knesset and they're going to take out Sefer Torah, they name her, yes? And a boy, we wait until the Brit Milah, and at the Brit Milah, after they finish giving him a Brit Milah, what happens? They give him a name. So a name is very, very important. If we look at the Torah, we look at the Tanakh, or we look at the Tefillah, we see that Hashem has many names. Yes? So let's just understand that for a little bit, and then we're going to study a little bit about the bracha of Birchat HaTorah, and then I want to learn from a book called Sha'arei Orah, which is a book that I have been giving classes on for a while. I have about 51 classes on the first gate of Sha'arei Orah so far. And I'll describe what this book is shortly and why it's so important for us to learn the book. So we understand a name is important. So if I ask the question, if we're going to talk about God, Hashem, how many names does he have? It's a trick question.
3.
No, there's a number. We learned the first. No,
So was that 72?
72, right?
At 7, I hear 72. Do I hear 10? Do I?
Infinite number.
Infinite. So I did say it was a trick question, yes? If we talk about, and we mention nothing ever about the essence, atzmo, his essence, there is no name. Why is there no name?
Why Shaddai at night? This is the name.
I'm talking about we're gonna understand something very deep. You know, I like to go deep, right? So when we talk about the essence of God, we have nothing to say about the essence of God. We know nothing about the essence of God. There is no name for the essence of God. Why is there no name? Because what is a name? What is it? What is the function of a name?
Status?
Maybe. What else?
It's a label.
A label or a description or a limitation. Right? If my name is Mordechai, it's not Shlomo. Yes? So a name gives a description and limits the one that is named. Since we know that Hashem, the reason why we can say nothing about his essence, his very essence, is because it's beyond our comprehension, because it's infinite of infinite of infinite. So therefore, there is no name that can contain his essence. His essence is infinite. So when we give, but we see the Torah gives Hashem names. Yes, there are names in the Torah. So what are these names describing? They're descriptions, yes? Descriptions of what? If they're not descriptions of the essence of God, because I just said that there can be no name that encompasses his essence. Qualities, very good. Or midot, attributes. From the name that is being used, we learn the attribute, or to say this in a better way, or not a better way, but a different way. The only thing we can say about God is how he influences the world, how he acts in the world. This is all we can really say about Hashem. If you look at next week's parasha, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Har'eni nat kevodecha, show me your kavod, show me your glory. What's God's answer? Lo yir'ani ha'adam b'chai. A person cannot see me. That can't be seen while alive. And even while dead, there's things we can't see either. But what does Hashem say? What's the response? I'm going to pass by you, and you're going to see my back. We'll see that in a second. Very good. You're going to see my back. That's what it says in the Torah. Ufanai lo yerau. But my face you can't see. You can only see my back. And Rashi says, what does it mean to see the back? Kesher tefillin. That Kavyachol in the Gemara, it says that God wears tefillin, just like we wear tefillin. The tefillin of our tefillin, what is our tefillin? What's written inside? Praises of God. What's written in the tefillin? The Gemara asks, what's written in the tefillin of Hashem? Praises of Klal Yisrael. Very good. That's exactly right. Now, what does it mean that you will see my back, but my face you will not see? Like you said, Kesher tefillin. He showed him the kesher, because in the back of the head, the tefillin of Rosh, there's a kesher, there's a knot, yes? What does that mean? He showed him the kesher. What does it mean you'll see my back, but my front you can't see? What does that mean? There's no front, there's no back. Which means the only way we can get to know Hashem is through his actions in the world. When he acts in the world, his attributes in the world, this is how we can know Hashem. We can't know his essence, but we can know how he interacts with us, how he relates to us. That's another way of using it, yes? So when you give someone your name, yes, generally in a typical, in America, if it's a professional relationship, you're going to be called by Mr. So-and-so or Dr. So-and-so, yes? Yeah. But when you're speaking amongst family, you don't call somebody by that. You call them by their first name, right? So we understand that different types of names can mean a different familiarity. When you get to know someone, yes, you don't give your name out to everybody in the street that asks. Thank God we're not living with the Gestapo, okay? But unlike in COVID when you had to show your COVID identification card, ridiculous nonsense. What's that? We're going to get to that, okay? So everybody has a name, and who do you share your name with? Someone that you generally have a relationship with, yes? A person has an email. Their email may not contain their name at all. That's your email handle, right? Sometimes people have YouTube channels. They don't use their name. They use some type of other name, yes? But who do you give your name to? These are people that generally you have some type of relationship with. So we understand that since all of us have an obligation as human beings on the planet, but especially as Jews, to have a relationship with God, yes? And God has a desire, a ratzon, to have a relationship with us. How does a person get to know God? Through his actions in the world, but especially through his names. Okay? And if you look, there's a bracha we say in the morning, and hopefully men and women say the bracha, because the halacha is both men and women are obligated to say these brachot. It's called Bichot HaTorah. We make bracha before the Torah. Yes, not Aliyah. That's not what we're talking about. That's a similar bracha. But when a person wakes up in the morning, it does Netilat Yadayim, says Birchot HaShachar, and then after finishing Birchot HaShachar, says Birchot HaTorah. Yes? Where do we learn the requirement to say Birchot HaTorah?
Ashkenazim don't say it.
Yes, they do. They just wait to get to shul. Actually, technically, they're supposed to say it before they go to shul.
When we say that in Birchot HaShachar, it's already there, no?
Correct. The Ashkenazim, they say all the Birchot HaShachar when they get to Bet Knesset. That's what Josh is saying. Sfaradim say that at home. That's homework. You come to shul, you already said Birchot HaShachar and Birchot HaTorah. Generally, Ashkenazim should say Birchot HaTorah when they wake up in the morning, especially if they're going to learn. Okay, but Birchot HaShachar, they wait till they get to Bet Knesset and say it. But where do we learn the mitzvah to say Birchot HaTorah? The men have to know this. The ladies don't have to know this.
Where we learn?
So if I ask you a question, where do we learn the mitzvah to say Birkat HaMazon? Where do we learn that from? Ve'achalta ve'savata u'berachta. There's a pasuk in Parashat Ekev that says, you shall eat, and you shall be sustained, you shall be filled, you shall be satiated, u'berachta. And then afterwards you make a beracha. Everybody agrees that Birkat HaMazon is midoraita, it's from the Torah. Okay? And according to most opinions, Birkat HaMazon is also deoraita for women as well. Okay? Why wouldn't it be for women? It's not time bound. When you eat, you say a bracha. When you don't eat, you don't say a bracha. So it's not time bound. The women eat too, right? So why would there? What's the idea? Why would there be some poskim that say they don't say the bracha? It's not from the Torah. Ve'achalta ve'savata u'berachta al haaretz hatova asher. But we see that receiving the land, bnot tzlofcha, being an exception, that's a temporary situation. Yishuv, inheriting the land, is only for the men. Yes? So therefore, there are some hold that Birkat HaMazon for women is midrabanan. That is not the halacha. It's midoraita. Okay? Now, where do we learn Birchot? There's no other bracha that is clearly mentioned in the Torah with the exception of Birkat Kohanim, but that's not all Klal Yisrael. That's only Kohanim, right? But Birchot Torah, where do we learn that from? So there's a pasuk in Ha'azinu that says, Ki Shem Adonai Ekra Havu Godel Le'Elohenu. When you call Ekra or read God's name, Ki Shem Yudke Vavke Ekra, when I call Hashem's name, Havu Godel Le'Elohenu. Give Godel, which is a bracha, which is thank you, which is greatness to our God. So from here, the Gemara also learns the Masechet Brachot. Minan de Birchot HaTorah min HaTorah. Where do we learn that Birchot HaTorah is from the Torah? From that pasuk. So now, when is the appropriate time to learn Torah?
Nighttime.
What about daytime?
All day.
All day, every day, right? All day. So therefore, learning Torah is not a mitzvat aseh shazman grama. Learning Torah is not a time-bound mitzvah. There, and do women have to learn Torah?
Yes.
Halachot, I think.
Of course.
Well, halachot is Torah. Would you study halakha in the bathroom? No. So therefore, women have to learn halakha. Women have to learn emunah. Women have to learn Shabbat. Yes? There are many halachot, and many women don't have to learn Talmud Torah, which is where we learn things from. Like, for instance, when I said, where do we learn Birchot HaTorah from the Torah? What did I say? Women, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to know that. You can know that, but you don't have to know that. The men have to know that. We have to know where it's learned from and all the different ramifications. That's called Talmud. But there is no time for learning Torah. Torah is any time, all the time. Halavai, we should have the time to learn. And since it's not a positive commandment that is related to time, women are obligated to learn Torah. Well, if women are obligated to learn Torah, then women are also obligated to say Birchot Torah. Any questions on that? We good?
Just a
Okay.
little question. You know, in
Yep.
Siddur, some Siddurs, the women say, when they say, a little bit off topic, but they say Shersani Ketanot. Some Siddurs have the bracha and some don't. Why is that?
We don't say it with Shem and Malchut. Even
Why
Ash.
sometimes times I see they write it with Hashem's name, the whole thing.
I haven't seen that. You could show me that. I'd love to see that.
I've seen it. I'll show you.
Show it to me. Okay? Okay. Now let's look at the Bechot Torah, and that's going to be a perfect segue to what we're going to talk about. Okay? What are the Bechot Torah? For the first one, there are three of them, right? The first one is Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, Asher Kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al divrei Torah. That you commanded us, you sanctified us and commanded us to do what? Al divrei Torah, on the words of the Torah. Yes? Next beracha. V'ha'arev na Hashem Elokeinu. God, make it sweet. Ha'arev na is the concept of sweet. Make it sweet for us. Et divrei Toratecha befinu. The words of your Torah in our mouths. Ubepifiyot amecha be'Yisrael. And in the lips, the mouth of every Jew. V'nihiyeh anachnu. And let it be that we, v'tze'etzaenu, and our children, v'tze'etzaenu, and our children's children, grandchildren, v'tze'etzae amecha be'Yisrael, and all of those who were descended from your nation Israel, kulanu, all of us, yode'e shemecha, knowing of your names. It doesn't say yode'e shimcha, it says yode'e shemecha, which means knowing your names. V'lomedei toratecha lishma, and also learning Torah lishma. What is lishma? For whose sake?
For the learning of Torah's sake.
That's one way to learn it out, but there's another way to learn it out. L'shem Hashem. Lishma is in the name of Hashem.
Shouldn't it be the Shemcha?
No, because we're talking about the feminine aspect of God, which is lishma with the hey. Okay? Shem Shelah. Shem Shelah, her name. Yes, if you want to translate it literally, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm giving you a different way to understand it. You should learn it in the sake of her name. Whose name? Not the Torah's name. The name of Hashem. What's the purpose for learning Torah? That's a tough question. What is the purpose for learning Torah? Boil it down to the most essential component. He gave it to us for that reason, so that we can learn the mitzvot and pass it on. And why do we have to learn the mitzvot and pass it on? Because we have to do the mitzvot. And why do we have to do the mitzvot? Because Hashem commanded us. Because why? We have a relationship with Hashem. So we want to be learning Torah. What does it mean, lishma? For only one purpose, for the relationship with Hashem. Because everything that comes from that should be improving one's relationship with Hashem. When you study the Torah and you learn the mitzvot, you see what Hashem is asking of us. And from that, you get to know Hashem through the mitzvot. What did we say before? The way we get to know God is through his actions or through his commandments. That explains Lomedei Toratcha Lishma. But before we get to that, what does the bracha say? Kulanu Yode'e Shemecha. What does that mean? Know your names. So part, or the initial part of studying Torah, is first to know Hashem's names. One can suggest that if a person doesn't understand Hashem's names, you really don't understand the Torah. You might be on the surface understanding the simple meaning, but that's not sufficient, right? Generally, a husband and wife, they want to have not a superficial relationship that you have at work, okay? A husband and wife is supposed to have a deep relationship, yes? We should want to have a deep relationship with God. That deep relationship is dependent on knowing his names. and learning the Torah l'shem shamayim. Yes.
If I remember, in the Torah, that pasuk that has the v'tzitzim, there's three. That word comes out 3 times.
Tze'etzaenu, tze'etzaenu, v'tze'etzei amecha be'Yisrael. 3 times, correct. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So in a lot of the Siddur, I see it's 4, but in the original pasuk, I think it's 3.
I'm not sure this is the pasuk.
It's not from there. It's not from the.
I don't think so. If you see it inside, let me know. I'll look it up. Okay? And then we finish that bracha, Baruch atah Hashem hamelamed Torah le'amo Yisrael, who teaches the Torah to his nation, to the nation of Israel, his nation of Israel. And then we have the last one, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, that we're recognizing our special place, that what did Hashem do? He picked us out of all the nations, right? And what is the sign? What is the greatest symbol that Hashem picked us from all the nations? Asher natan lanu et Torato. So he took us out of Egypt for what purpose? Just so we can be free? To give us the Torah, which means the slavery aspect, to be slaves to a better master, right? Instead of being slaves to a slave, we are now slaves to the boss.
But it says in Torah, if you choose it, if you want to stay in his house, make a home, and be slave to your own.
We say that in the Megillah, we say that in the Haggadah, that if a person doesn't appreciate Yetziat Mitzrayim, he's still in Egypt, he's still in slavery. And also when we came out, there was a condition. Yetziat Mitzrayim was not a free pass. It was a condition. What was the condition? Ta'avdun et ha'elohim bahar hazeh. We have to do the mitzvot, which means Hashem said, I'm going to take you out of Egypt. I'm going to do you a tremendous favor because I could have left you there. Okay? I'm going to take you out of Egypt, but there's a condition. What's the condition? Follow the Torah. Okay? So that's why we have to appreciate Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. He picked us from all the nations and he gave us the Torah. What does it mean he gave us the Torah? You just gave it to us on Har Sinai. Thank you so much. It's great. What does it mean when it says Hashem gave us the Torah? Correct. That means he gave. But what kind of gift is that? I'll give you an example. Baruch Hashem, Berta and David put out a beautiful spread. Yes? They gave us sushi and there's grapes there and there's some cakes over here. Yes? And when they gave it, they have no intention of getting it back, because once you chew it and swallow it, they don't really want it back at that point, correct? Okay? Which means when you give something to someone and it's a real gift, what does that mean? You're giving it to them and have no longer ownership. When Hashem gave us the Torah, he gave us ownership of the Torah. And that's why it says also in Parashat, in Dvarim, Lo b'shamayim hi. What does it mean the Torah is not in the Shamayim? That's one meaning, correct. It's not in the Shamayim. And what if it wasn't be given? You'd have to go get it in the Shamayim, yes? When we say Lo, and the Gemara says Lo b'shamayim hi, what does it mean? The Gemara over there is saying that the rabbis were given the ability to basically interpret the Torah and to give it to us. And sometimes, for instance, I'll give you an example. This past year, Rosh Hashanah fell on Shabbat. In the Torah, it says blow shofar, right? We blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah. In the Torah, how many days is Rosh Hashanah? 1. 1. In the Torah, it's only 1. Okay? Yom Teruah Yelachem. 1 day, yes? And the only day from the Torah that's Rosh Hashanah is the first day. And the Torah says, you shall blow shofar on the first day, or Sukkot. This year, the first day of Sukkot fell on Shabbat. It says, Ulkachtem lachem bayom harishon. You shall take for yourselves on the first day. Only the first day is a mitzvah from the Torah. All the other days of Sukkot, taking lulav and etrog, is not from the Torah. It is mitrei chachamim. Rosh Hashanah blowing shofar this year was d'Rabbanan, because midoraita we were supposed to blow shofar on Shabbat. And why didn't we blow shofar on Shabbat? Because the rabbis told us that when Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbat, you don't blow shofar, because what's going to happen? Someone's going to take the shofar to go learn how to blow. And for that one Jew that's going to make a mistake and carry the shofar in the public thoroughfare and violate the Shabbat, they uproot, just for that year, the mitzvah from the Torah. Got it? So, and there's other examples of that. You know, Eliyahu Navi, when the Jewish people were not behaving properly, and some of them were worshiping the Baal, and some of them were worshiping Hashem, and some of them were sort of wishy-washy. You know, if things go well, I'll believe in Hashem. If things don't go well, I'll believe in the Baal. Yes? Sort of that wishy-washiness. Yes? And so Eliyahu Navi, being a kanai, because he was Pinchas, was very upset. So what did he do? He made a sacrifice. Okay, he challenged the prophets of the Baal to make a sacrifice, and he made a sacrifice to see which one would be accepted. Where did he make that sacrifice? Did he make it in Jerusalem? No, he made it in Haifa, in Har Carmel. And one was not allowed to bring a sacrifice outside of Jerusalem. Once the temple was built, sacrifices can only be done on Har HaBayit. Eliyahu Navi made a sacrifice outside the temple. What's the punishment for making a sacrifice outside the temple once the temple is built? Death. Karet. But Eliyahu Navi, what did he do? He made a sacrifice outside the temple. Why did he do so? Because it says in the Talmud, it's a pasuk from Tehillim, Et lasot lashem hefero torotecha. It's a time to do for God. They have nullified your Torah. That's what it says in Tehillim. So the Gemara asks a question. Okay, I got to do something. But the pasuk doesn't say what to do. What do? Here's the answer. Hefero toratecha mishum et lasot laHashem. In a situation where people are truly, truly misbehaving, the rabbis have the koach to uproot something from the Torah in order to get people close to the Torah. And so Eliyahu Navi wasn't doing it from prophecy. A prophet is not allowed to hear prophecy to tell him to go against the Torah. Certainly not publicly, okay? He did it from his chokhmah, because it's called Hora'at Sha'ah. What does Hora'at Sha'ah mean? It's a Hora'ah, which means the commandment, the halakha, for the hour, which means now, but not any other time. And Eliyahu Navi did, and he wasn't punished, of course, and Hashem, of course, took the sacrifice of his and did not accept the sacrifice. The sacrifice of Baal was not accepted. So that's the concept of Hora'at Sha'ah. So when Hashem gave us the Torah, it was a gift that is now ours. Everybody got that? Baruch Atah Hashem Noten HaTorah. Why is it Noten HaTorah? Why is it Natan HaTorah?
Because he constantly gives.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
How does he constantly give? Explain that to me. He gave it on Har Sinai, yes?
it's like Oben Atid, no?
Okay, go ahead. I got you. So you're saying you're making a grammatic argument, fine. But let's do from a drasha point of view. It says last week, 2 weeks ago, we read, Pashat Yitro, 3 weeks ago. What does we read? Second, it says, B'chodesh hashelishi, it was in the third month, which is the month of Sivan, Letzet b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Yisraim, since the Jewish people, from the time the Jewish people left Egypt, Bayom hazeh, in that very day, Ba'u midbar Sinai. What does it mean, Bayom hazeh? Let's read the pasuk without that. B'chodesh hashelishi letzet b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Yisraim, Ba'u midbar Sinai. I got it. What is Bayom hazeh? On this very day. Rashi says, grammatically, it should have said Bayom hazeh. It should have said Bayom ha-hu, on that very day. What is Bayom hazeh? So Rashi says, what does this teach us? that the words of Torah, when a person is learning them, should be always new. Chadash. Yes? Imagine somebody comes up with a chidush of the Torah, a novel idea that hasn't been said since the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. No rabbi wrote that chidush ever. It's not in the town, and it's within the pale of settlement. It's not off the reservation, shall we say? Yes, it's not a nonsense perush. It's a true perush, right? No one has said it since Moshe Rabbeinu. That person feels amazing. Why? Because they have a piece of the Torah that is theirs. No one else has it, except for Moses, who received it all on Har Sinai. That's an amazing chidush, novel idea. There's another kind of chidush. What's another kind of chidush? It's been written about, but I didn't see it inside. I looked at the pasuk, or I looked at the Gemara. I came to a conclusion of what it should be, what it means, and then I look at the Tosafot, and the Tosafot says exactly what I said, which means it's not a chidush. Why is it not a chidush? Because it's already written inside. But for me, it's chidush. Why? Because I didn't look at it inside and read it. I thought about it myself, and then looked and said, oh my God, I'm thinking exactly like the great rabbi. That's another type of chidush. Both of those chidushim require something. What do they require? A lot of erudition, a lot of knowledge, a lot of ability. There's a kind of chidush that everybody can have. What kind of chidush? I heard it yesterday. I heard it this morning, but now I heard it again today. I read Kriyat Shema. I read it yesterday. Baruch Hashem, I've read it every single day since I'm 13 years old, once in the morning, once at night. But every time I read Kriyat Shema, I feel as if it was given to me just now. That's a chidush that anybody can have. What's that dependent on? How much love a person has for the Torah. The more a person loves the Torah, it could be an idea they already had. But the hearing it again, it's like the first time. To quote a song from Foreigner, feels like the very first time. It's the first time, even though it's the 100th time. It feels great. That's a chidush. When a person goes to the Shamayim, after he sleeps at night, in the Shamayim, they don't really care about what kind of business deals you had. They don't care how many houses you built. I'm not sure they care how much pain and patience you saved, per se. What do they want to know? What chidush did you hear in the world? Woe unto the Jewish soul that goes to the Shamayim after when he's sleeping at night or she's sleeping at night and has no chidush to say. What are you doing down there? What's going on? You're watching TV, you're doing Netflix, you're on your phone, you're watching YouTube. That's what I sent you down there for? TikTok.
Something new every day.
Every second.
But each one of those three are examples of chidush, especially the last one, that anybody can have. There's another example, if you think about it. A person is coming to Yom Kippur, yes? And of course, on Yom Kippur, Erev Kippur, the mitzvah to eat and to drink, yes? To make sure you eat well and drink well, yes? And generally, if people are smart, what they do, they make sure that by the time Kippur comes in, they're well fed and well hydrated. Because you know you're going to go 26 hours or 25 and a half hours and you're not going to be drinking anything, you're not going to be eating anything, yes? So by the time you've already had that second gallon of water before Kippur comes along, you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I've had enough, thank you so much, you're done, yes? That water tastes the same, you're not interested. Now you have that water, you have a bottle, you drank out of it or you drank with a cup, now you put it back in the refrigerator, okay? Kippur finishes, you go home. You take that bottle of water out of the refrigerator. How does it taste? Amazing. But what do we notice? It's the same water. Even Woodmere water tastes good after Kippur. New York City water tastes good every day. But Woodmere water only tastes good after Kippur, unless you have a filter, right? So why is that? That's the excitement of person. That's one of the ways that Torah is nim shel alamayim, right? It says every thirsty person go to the water. That's what it says in the Tanakh. a person should always be thirsty for Torah. And if a person is always thirsty for Torah, even if it's something they heard the morning and they're hearing it again, that thirst is quenched. The key is to prepare oneself to be always thirsty to hear Divrei Torah.
As you mentioned, it comes from love,
Uh-huh.
feeling to be connected to Hakadosh Baruch Hu.
Ah.
I had that feeling like 18, 20 years ago when I just became Baal Shua. I started learning, reading. I remembered that feeling. I was so thirsty for a year and a half, I was able to read whole Tanakh.
Okay, so we do recognize that it's hard, and that's called Avodat Hashem.
But not now.
Well, let's help you to get there again. That's the goal here, right? The goal here, like when I give classes, yes, if someone has to leave early, when someone has to leave early, they got something to do. What do I say? It's the teacher's job to make it hard for you to leave. If it's easy for you to leave, I didn't do my job, right? It's my job to make it hard for you to leave, even food or no food. It's hard for you to leave, which means what? That I'm quenching a thirst that you have. You know, listen, Baruch Hashem, there's plenty of other things you could be doing at 8, 9 o'clock at night, even though we have Baruch Hashem, we have a good spread, right? But you're all here. I know you love Bertha and you love David, but the bottom line is you're all here. Why? Because there's a thirst for the Torah that you want to get quenched, yes? How does a person have that thirst all the time? Okay, but you know, some people, first of all, a person has to find their place in the Torah. People have different places, yes? Some people, they learn the Daf of Gemara, and they are in heaven. In heaven. Some people, they learn Parashat HaShavua, and they're in heaven. Some people read Tehillim, and they're in heaven. Whatever works for you. Obviously, everybody has to learn halakha. That is not a choice, yes? Okay, but one should try to find the parts of the Torah that are you're the most thirsty for. And when a person is always going to look to quench that thirst with that type of Torah, you're always going to be thirsty. Right? All right. So that's why Birchot Torah says, before the learning of the Torah, what does it say? Yodei Shemecha. Because it's hard to imagine a person studying the Torah, or for that matter, praying, and not knowing the names of Hashem. Because in the Tanakh and in the Tefillah, there are many names of Hashem. So now let me ask another trick question. How many names does God have? Somebody said 7, somebody said 10, somebody had 72. The answer to that is he has an infinite amount of names. How do I know he has an infinite amount of names? Ki Shem Adonai ekra havu godel leEloheinu. When you call Hashem's name, it says, you have to make Birchot Torah. Yes? Call Hashem's name. You mean if I read a pasuk in the Torah that doesn't have Hashem's name in it, I don't make a bracha on that? I'll give you an example. I read a pasuk in the Torah. Ha'azinu hashamayim va'adabera v'tishma ha'aretz imrefi. In that pasuk, how many names of Hashem are there? How many clear names of Hashem? 0. So does that mean that I'm allowed to say that pasuk before Birchot Torah? No. So what do we learn from here? Birchot Torah, what does it say? It says, first of all, Havu Kishem Hashem Ekra. When you call the name of Hashem, Havu Godel Elohim, which means any Torah that you learn, before you learn Torah, if you slept at night, you have to make Birchot Torah. Even if you didn't sleep at night. When you make a bracha in the morning, Birchot Torah, it carries you for that day and for the night that follows that day. Once you go to sleep for 30 minutes, let's say you go to sleep, and then you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you want to learn, okay? You say Birchot HaShachar, Netilat Yadayim, Birchot HaShachar, and Birchot Torah. What if a person goes to sleep at 7 o'clock at night, after maybe it's dark, and he wakes up at 11 p.m., it's not Chatzot yet, and he wants to learn, or she wants to learn. What's the halacha? No Birchot HaShachar. You can't make Birchot HaShachar until after Chatzot. But Birchot Torah have nothing to do with Chatzot. Once a person has slept for 30 minutes at night, since it's the next day, they have to say Birchot Torah. Again, even before Chatzot. But after Chatzot, you have to say Birchot HaShachar and Birchot Torah. If a person sleeps for a half an hour, 45 minutes at night, and then wakes up, and then wants to learn or say any pasuk or read Kiryat Shema, they first have to say Birchot Torah. Why? Because the bracha they made in the morning doesn't no longer count for them. Why? Because it's the next day and they slept. The only way it carries for you is if you don't sleep. Now, if a person is up all night and wakes up in the morning and doesn't wake up in the morning, it's by the next morning, then you say Birchot Torah anyway. That's for the Sfardim. Ashkenazim, they try to be Yotze with someone else who slept. But Sfardim are allowed to say Birchot Torah even if they didn't sleep, because it's already the next day. It only frees you over the course of the night, and there was no sleeping. Any questions on that?
So we're allowed to read Torah in Hebrew at nighttime? No
Okay, so
problem?
from a Kabbalistic point of view, it's better not to read Torah Shebichtav at night. Okay? Torah Shebichtav is better studied in the day, and Torah Shebi'al Peh is better studied at night. Or, let me be more specific about that. Torah Tanigla, the revealed Torah should be studied during the day, and the hidden Torah should be studied at night, especially after Chatzot. Okay? So, very important for us to get to know the names of Hashem. How many names of Hashem? He has an infinite amount of names, because every word in the Torah, every word in the Tanakh is really a name of Hashem.
Isn't also the entire text of the Torah is one big name?
It's many names. You could look at it as one long name,
Yeah.
or many individual names. Okay? So now let's think about this for a second. So there are 10 names that are made of really of 7. There are 7 names that are, shall we say, the roots. Aleph, Hey, Yud, Hey, right? Then there is Yud, K, without the Vav, K. Then there is Elokim. Then there is Aleph, Dalad, Nun, Yud. Shin, Dalad, Yud, right? And then there's Hashem Tzvaot, Yud Kei Vav Kei Tzvaot, and there's also Elokim Tzvaot, armies. Okay, so if we think about Tzava, Tzvaot is plural, yes? Okay, and if we add those up, there is really 7 names that really come to 10 permutations. That's Ashkenaz Sidur.
Really?
There is no Yud Yud. Let's think about it. How would you say Yud Yud? Yai? How would you do that? There's no word Yai in Hebrew, right?
You know?
It's so they don't have to write Yud Ke Vav Ke, so they put Yud Yud.
God.
It's not
I
Shema.
didn't know that.
What?
It's not Shema.
You know that?
I don't know, it's a good
I
question.
didn't know it's an Ashkenazi Siddur. I thought it would have-
You'll never see Yud Yud in the Sephardic Sidur.
Never.
Never.
Never thought
Never.
of
As a matter of fact, when I was in Israel, when I was becoming, learning in Israel, when I was after high school, I got very frustrated because all the Sidur had Yud Yud in it. I didn't like that. I said, I recognize I can't say Yud Ke Vav Ke, I can't pronounce his name, but I want to see it. I want to see his name. So I went to Mea She'arim, and I asked him, this is before I realized it was a concept of a Sephardic Sidur. I said, I want a Sidur that has Hashem's name, Yud Ke Vav Ke, written inside. I'm not going to say it, but I want to see it. And he gave me a Sidur, which I still have to this day, called Tikkun Meir, which is a Hasidic Sidur. It's Nusach Sfarad that has Yud Ke Vav Ke written out. Okay? But your original Ashkenaz Sidurim didn't have that. They had Yud Yud. Okay? Okay. So how do we get to know Hashem's name? So Hashem has 7 names that really make up 10. Each one of those names corresponds to a different one of the Sfirot. So Aleph Hey Yud Hey corresponds to the Sfira of Keter. Aleph Daled Nun Yud corresponds to the Sfira of Malchut. Shin Daled Yud corresponds to the Sfira of Yesod. So each one of the names corresponds to a different Sfira. Why is that important? Because each Sfira is a different midah of Hashem, an attribute. What's chesed? Loving kindness. What's Elokim? It's din, givura. So these are the attributes how Hashem interacts with the world. These are the 10 sfirot. And that's why there are 10 names that correspond to each one of those sfirot. But that's not all the names Hashem has. There are other names, like Eretz is a name of Hashem. It's not a name that is holy that you can't erase it. But when it's in the Torah, it's a name of Hashem. Aleph Resh Tzadi. Yeah. So every word in the Torah, there's a straightforward meaning. Eretz means ground. That's also a name of Yisrael. It's the name of Hashem. Yeah. So this book called Sha'arei Orah, what it does, it first and foremost breaks up the 10 names of Hashem into 10 Sha'arim, discusses each name. It starts with the Sfirah of Aleph Daled Nun Yud, which corresponds to the Malchut, right? That's the Malchut, Aleph Daled Nun Yud. And then it goes through each one of the 10 Sfirot. Within the Sfirah of Malchut, there are many, many other names. Okay? I'll give you another example. The word Kala. What does Kala mean? Bride. It's also a name of Hashem. Not just because of the hey. There's a word called Kol. That is the name of Hashem. Kol corresponds to the Yesod. Kala responds to the Malchut. The hey at the end of the word Kol makes it from Kol to Kala, which basically means Kol is all giving, Kala is all receiving. It's receiving. He's lucky his wife is not here. But she might be listening, Josh.
I love you.
So we understand that there are names. So that's why anytime a person reads a pasuk, even if it doesn't have a name of Hashem that is clear to us, each word in the Torah corresponds to a name of Hashem. We understand that we're going to read in next week's parasha, not the Shabbat, but the Shabbat after. We're going to read that Moshe Rabbeinu, after the Jewish people made Chet HaEgel, made a big, big mistake. Hashem wanted to wipe us out completely, yes? And Moshe Rabbeinu prayed and basically got us to be forgiven. And then God gives Moshe Rabbeinu a very important tool. What's the tool? Okay, good. Well, what other tools? God told Moses, by the way, this is not the only time the Jewish people are going to get themselves in trouble. There's going to come a time in the future where the Jewish people are going to get themselves into trouble. Not once, not twice, but many, many times. And what's the problem? When they get themselves into trouble, then you are not going to be there to save them. So here, God wanted to wipe out the Jewish people. They made a big mistake, Chet HaEgel, right? Moshe Rabbeinu says, erase me from the book. Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the greatest communicator with God in the history of the world ever, was able to intercede on our behalf to get forgiveness. And that's why, what does Hashem say? Salachti kidvarecha, meaning what? I forgave for your words. That's great when Moses is alive. What happens when Moses is not alive? They're going to get themselves into trouble. And how are they going to be rescued? So what does Hashem say? Very good. Hashem, it says in Gemara Masechet Ta'anit, put a talet on, kavyachol, dressed up like a shaliach tzibur. That's why the Ashkenazim, when they say slichot, they wear talit, right? Because the Gemara says Hashem dressed in a talit like a shaliach tzibur. Of course, there's a lot of sodot right there. And then he says, do this, and you will be forgiven. Ta'aseh lefanai, do before me this. And what is this? Hashem, kel rachum v'chanun, erech hapayim rav chesed be'emet, noseh chesed la'alafim, noseh avon v'pesha v'chata'a v'nakeh. Yes? The Yud Gimel Midot. Yud Gimel Midot of Rachamim. Why are they called Yud Gimel Midot of Rachamim? Because, and what type of rachamim are we talking about? Yud Kei Vav Kei represents rachamim, but not full rachamim. Rachamim mixed with judgment. Where do we see that? In Mitzrayim, in Kriyat Yamsuf. What does it say? Ki Yad Hashem Hoya. Yad Hashem Hoya. Look at the word Hoya. You reverse the letters. What do you have? Yud Kei Vav Kei. What about Egypt? What about Kriyat Yamsuf was unique? Yud Kei Vav Kei punishes the wicked and saves or rewards or gives rachamim to the righteous. Or we really weren't that righteous, yes? But we weren't as wicked as they were. So what did Hashem do? Hashem, that Yud Kei Vav Kei, that midah of Yud Kei Vav Kei, drowned the Egyptians. And even though we also were not such good behaving, we didn't behave as bad as they did, so there was rachamim. Even though we didn't deserve it. What rachamim was there on the Egyptians? None. Even though Yud Kei Vav Kei is generally understood as rachamim, it's din for the goyim. That's why it says in the time of the Mashiach, Umale'ah ha'aretz de'ah et Yud Kei Vav Kei kamayim la'yam mechasim. That the world will be full of knowledge or connection to Yud Kei Vav Kei, not Allah, not Jesus. Kamayim la'yam mechasim. Why Yud Kei Vav Kei? Because they're going to recognize that even though, the Jewish people we're good, but we're not great, right? The Mashiach's going to come probably because he has a time to come. We're not getting him to come early, at least I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Okay, we could try harder and make it happen, right? But it's already 2,000 years. We're still waiting. Yes, we've gone through a lot of troubles and difficulties, October 7th, and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to come. He's going to come on time because why? We don't really deserve it. He's going to come because Hashem promised it. But when he comes, as much as we didn't deserve it, we're going to get all the benefits of the Mashiach coming. The Goyim are going to get punished for how they treated us. Look what's going on in the UN right now. They want to make a Palestinian Arab state. Good luck. Insanity. Good luck. So we see everybody's taking sides. And when Yud Kei Vav Kei is going to reveal himself to the Jewish people, he's going to reveal himself with mercy. To those Goyim, they're not going to like it. At all. Okay? The Goyim that are B'nai Noach, the Goyim that looking for Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Goyim that understand that the way they get close to Hashem is by connecting to the Jewish people, they will receive the Rachamim of Yud Kei Vav Kei. But the rest of them, it's din for them.
That's only if it says Hashem.
No. Yud Kei Vav Kei, even alone. In Mitzrayim, it doesn't say Hashem. Mitzrayim, it says only one name, Hashem, yes? On Yam Suf, Yud Kei Vav Kei, right? What happened? The Egyptians drowned and the Jewish people were saved with the exact same thing. The ocean called Yam Suf allowed the Jewish people to pass and killed the Egyptians. That's Yud Kei Vav Kei. But the Yud Gimel Midot are not Yud Kei Vav Kei. Even though we say Hashem, Hashem, Kel Rachum V'Chanun, Yud Gimel Midot are connected to a different name. What name is Yud Gimel Midot connected to? The name of Aleph, Hey, Yud, Hey. Those are called the 13 attributes of the Diyukna. If anyone remembers back to Tashlich, in the Aramaic part, that's from the Zohar, that's very hard to understand. That's never translated in the Art Scroll, okay? It talks about the 13 Diyukna, which basically means, and Mashal is the beard. It's really a part of the Keter, which is unlimited Rachamim for those who deserve it and those who don't. So the Yud Gimel Midot, what did Hashem do? He said, do before me these 13 attributes. And even if the Jewish people don't deserve to be saved, those 13 attributes is how they will be saved. But it doesn't say to say Yud Gimel Midot. That's not what it says. What does it say? Do before me. What does it mean, do before me? It says, Rachum. We know one of the attributes of Hashem is mercy. You want mercy from God? You want Hashem to show you mercy, even though you probably don't deserve it? What does that mean? You have to show mercy to others, even though they don't deserve it. I'm talking about fellow Jews. Okay? Chanun. What is chanun? Giving. Willingness to give chen. Right? Just like Hashem gives chen, one of the brachot in the, in the Birkat Kohanim is what? Yisa Hashem panav alecha vihuneka. And he should show you chen, pleasantness. You want to receive chen from Hashem? How do you get that? Showing chen to others. Erech apayim. What is erech apayim? Patience. Slow to anger. You want Hashem to behave with you with erech apayim. How do you get that to happen? By doing before him with erech apayim. And that's the Yud Gimel Midot. The goal of the Yud Gimel Midot is for us to recognize these attributes of mercy from Hashem, who he will give to people even if they don't deserve it at all. That's how we have to behave with fellow Jews, with those attributes, even though they don't deserve it at all. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be friends with them. It doesn't say you have to connect with them. Al titchaber la rasha, right? One doesn't have to be friendly with people that are going to be a bad spiritual influence on you. So like I've said in previous classes, a Jew, man or woman, should be able to say hi, v'bai to every Jew. What's the difference between a Jew that you want to be connected to because they help you to get spiritual and close versus a Jew that's not really behaving properly, that you really don't want to get influence from? The only difference is how quickly the bai comes after the hi. So for someone that you want to connect to because they're going to spiritually influence in a proper way, hi, and then you have a conversation. You talk. Someone who is going to be a negative influence on you, God forbid, that is going to bring you in a bad path, hi, bye. Very simple. But we should be able to say hi and bye to every Jew.
Even Norman Finkelstein?
Who's Norman Finkelstein?
The Rasha, the guy who's
I don't think he's a Jew.
Advocates for Palestinian.
He's not a Jew.
Norman Finkelstein's a Jew.
He's not.
Noam Chomsky.
Not a Jew.
George Soros.
Not a Jew.
What?
Not a Jew.
He's a Nazi.
These are not Jews. Not a Jew.
What do you mean?
The Erev Rav.
Oh, so you're saying it's not even.
It's hard to know who is Jew, who's not.
There is no. You can know who's a Jew, who's not. You know how you know who's a Jew, who's not a Jew?
3 signs, right? We have 3 signs.
Very simple. A Jew that loves Am Yisrael, a Jew that loves Eretz Yisrael, a Jew that loves the God of Israel. There's no question about that. That's a Jew. A Jew that hates God, a Jew that hates the land of Israel, a Jew that hates other Jews. This is someone who's probably not a Jew. And where do we learn that from? The Talmud. What is the Talmud? It doesn't mean you don't give him an aliyah. That's not what I'm saying. But what do I mean by this? The Talmud says the Jewish people have 3 qualities: Baishanim, Rachmanim, Gomle Chasadim. Baishanim are easily embarrassed or humble. Rachamanim, merciful. Gomle Chasadim, giving of loving kindness. Then the Talmud says, because these are the traits of Avraham Avinu. A Jew that has those traits can be sure that he's from Zera Avraham Avinu, even if he's a convert. Why? When a convert converts, what's his name? He picks the name Yisrael, ben Avraham Avinu. What are we saying? This convert who's converting L'Shem Shamayim, yes, is connected to Avraham. How? Baishanim, Rachmanim, Gomle Chasadim. If you see a Jew, convert or not, that is missing any one of those three qualities, you can investigate their lineage. So that means that when you're Bezrat Hashem, your children are going to be dating, and if they're going out with someone who's missing one of those qualities,
We gotta put them in a test to see.
NG.
So we gotta, how do you-
First of all, you're setting them up for a disastrous life, right? So we understand these are the three qualities that make a Jew. So those people you mentioned, okay, I think that if you dig in their past, and I'm not saying ancestry and all that kind of nonsense, I think if you dig in their past, what you're going to see is there's a great-great-great-grandmother that was Goya. No way that they're a Jew. And that's what I mean by Erev Rav.
So you know many of these in Israel?
There's a lot. I don't know about in Israel, a lot.
Easier to say shalom and bye and leave it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to decide
Again,
what to do.
if he presents himself as a Jew, hi v'bye, but make it a short distance between the hi and the bye. These are not people that you want to invite to your house. Yeah. You have to investigate really why that is. Not on personal information, but it's not good for you. Because what did we just say? Do we want Hashem to say hi to us? We don't always deserve that. There are times when we probably don't deserve it at all. There are times we kaviyachol make him angry with our behavior, with our speech, with our attitudes, with our thoughts. But what do we want Hashem to do? We want Hashem to say hi to us, no matter what. So then the only way that works is you have to say hi back. I'll give you another example to illustrate this. It says in the Talmud, I don't remember the source. It says that the second temple was destroyed. Why? Because the Jews acted with each other with din. So the Gemara says, oh, okay, din Torah, that's great. What should they have done? The din of the Gentiles? What does that mean that they acted with each other with din? They lived with each other according to the letter of the law. Which means when someone cheated me out of $1,000, what did I do? I took him to court to get my $1,000. Taking someone to court is optional. It's not required. There's no mitzvah. Of course, you can't take the law into your own hands, right? But taking someone to court is an option.
Meeting up to God.
Much better is to, of course, to talk together, see if you can work it out. And what if you can't work it out? That is called lifnim mishurat hadin, which means above and beyond what the halacha is asking. Because according to the halacha, you can take him to Beit Din. And if there's a contract, you're entitled to that money. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. But because the Jewish people behaved with each other according to the din of the Torah, without lifnim mishurat hadin, so Hashem behaved with the Jewish people according to the din and destroyed the temple and sent them into exile. So the way we behave with each other is the way Hashem behaves with us, both as a nation and as an individual.
$1,000 can be forgiven, but what about Avodah Zarah? Let's say your neighbor Jew does Avodah Zarah. How would you live with that?
Great example. So we have an example from the time.
If this issue during first-
We have an example from the Gemara that discusses a case that is very similar to that. Okay? A person's mehalel Shabbat publicly. What does it say? Ki'ilu oved avodah zara. It's as if he's worshiping avodah zara, and we treat him halachically kegoy lechol dvarav. We treat him as a Gentile. If I have a bottle of wine on the table, and it's not mivushal, and there's someone who's mehalel Shabbat publicly, and we have to define what that is. I'm not saying every Jew that drives on Shabbat would be considered that. It's someone who knows and does it anyway. Someone who doesn't know anything, wasn't brought up that way, that one can argue as a tinok shenishba ben agoyim. We could be lenient in those circumstances, yes? Okay, with the wine, it's probably better in those situations just to have yaitz and mevushal. This way you don't have to worry about it, okay? But you don't want to insult anybody, make anybody. But if it's a person who's mehalel Shabbat, if some one of these guys that would go out on Shabbat and specifically get into his car, drive around the block 3 times just to make God angry, okay? Not because he has to go anywhere. This is mehalel Shabbat befar hesyah. This is kegoy lechol dvarav. You don't close the door completely. Kegoy. It doesn't say he is a goy. He's like a Gentile.
What if he prays and drives?
1 second. So now the example you brought is an example of something worship avodah zarah. A person who's mehalel Shabbat befar hesyah is oved avodah zarah. So now Rabbi Meir had a neighbor. Rabbi Meir, Baal Hanes, had a neighbor who was mehalel Shabbat publicly and did it to annoy him. So Rabbi Meir, what does he do? He prays for him to die. Why would he pray for him to die? Mehalele amot yumat. What's the punishment for Chilul Shabbat? Death. So he asks Hashem to give him exactly what he deserves, which is death from Shamayim. His wife, whose name was Bruria, who was a Talmid Chacham in her own right, goes to her husband and says, "My dear, you are misreading the pasuk in the Tehillim. In Barchi Nafshi, what does it say? Barchi Nafshi, what does it say? Yitamu chataim min haaretz. Let sins be removed from the world." She says, "Honey, it doesn't say Yitamu chotim min haaretz. Let the sinners be removed from the land." You can't pray for him to die. It's better to pray for him to make teshuvah. Rabbi Meir accepted his wife's musar. He prayed for the guy to make teshuvah, and the guy made teshuvah. Exactly. So what the example you gave, if you have a Jew that's behaving that way, we should pray for them to make teshuvah. Doesn't mean you invite him over to your house and all that kind of stuff. That's not what we're talking about. Although it may not be such a bad thing to give him mishloach manot. Plenty of people give mishloach manot sometimes to obvious Gentiles, right? I would suggest give it to a Jew that's behaving like a Gentile before you give it to a Gentile that's fully a Gentile. Okay? Because it's kegoy lechol dvarav. I'm not sure I would be yotze in that mishloach manot, okay? I've already said the mishloach manot that one should be yotze with is not the one you give to your friends. Give mishloach manot to the person that you had a problem with that year, or the persons you had a problem with that year.
Can we give foreign to non-Jewish neighbors?
You can. Again, I would, if you have extra and you've been to all the Jews you need to give them, sure.
It's not to do the mitzvah.
There's no mitzvah giving to the goyim.
Just to improve relationship with them.
It's to improve relationships, right? But really, what I'm suggesting is if you have a Jew that's mehalel Shabbat befar hesyah, which is kegoy lechol dvarav, versus a Gentile, which is 100% fully goy lechol dvarav, it's better, I think, to give to a Jew that's mehalel Shabbat befar hesyah, that's kegoy lechol dvarav, but still a Jew, rather than give to the Gentile.
We did that, didn't get it.
Okay?
Who did we do that
What
with?
do you mean he didn't get it?
It was just like another present.
Okay, fine. That's okay. People like to get presents. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I would suggest is give it to someone that you've had a problem with that year or previous years. And you might find out that that person you had a problem with, suddenly you don't have a problem with them anymore.
I think that's if you spray some wine on the.
You're going extreme.
Huh? That'll help better.
Okay.
It's a piece of that.
Isn't that bad?
Any other questions on what we've talked about so far?
Yeah, you say if he acts like a goy, completely drives around. So you treat him like a goy, right? But if he prays and acts like a goy, what about that one?
Okay,
Still like
the Talmud tells us that the thief prays to Hashem that he'll be successful in his robbery. Okay, so he has a level of Yirat Shamayim. It's not a good level of Yirat Shamayim, but it's still a level of Yirat Shamayim.
Gotta be patient with him. That's it, right? Pray and
And once again, why do we need to be patient with these people?
Hashem will be patient to us.
That's exactly right. Because Hashem treats us the way we treat other people. All righty. We good?
Yeah.
All right, we'll stop here. Baruch Adonai leolam, amen ve'amen.
Zak Baruch. Amen.
I didn't do much from the book over here, but that's okay.